2 or 3 sentences. Harvey is going to do this a lot better than I do. Probably some of you have read the study From Blueprint to Scale, which Monitor Inclusive Markets published end of last year, which is highlighting a new role of philanthropy in impact investing. Very mainly comes to the conclusion that, especially in the early stages of a business, of a social business, there is a high need for seed capital, and this could become a new role for philanthropy, sort of one stage earlier than the investing, the impact investing for that sets in. And I'm proud to say that what this study is mainly focusing on is something which our network has already been doing in the past 3 years. I'm managing FEM Sustainable Social Solutions, which is a Section 25 company, a limited non-profit company, which is based out of Bangalore. And what we do is basically we see ourselves as an incubator, as an organization sort of in between philanthropy and impact investing, a facilitator. And during the past 3 years, almost 3 years that we have been in India, we managed to create several different pilot projects in the areas of water supply, health, telemedicine, affordable housing, organic farming, waste management. So it's kind of a portfolio where we knew from the beginning that probably not even half of those pilots would become sustainable or anything near sustainable, but it was more about seeing how something like a market at the bottom of the pyramid could work, if there is a market at all. Because I think by now there is a lot of new experiences which show that probably there is even the discussion about whether there is a market or a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, like Professor Prahalad mentioned it, whether this is happening at all or whether we just see a lot of aspirational needs among these people. And to speak of a market is probably premature, so that it would even be our job as seed funders to, first of all, create these kind of markets. This is one of the main experiences that we made during the past 3 years, apart from our projects, our individual projects. Could you?
Sure.
So our key objectives were mainly to see during the 3-year pilot phase which market-based solutions or where market-based solutions could be placed in India among customers and suppliers as well. We were also putting emphasis on creating and implementing models. That means we had the opportunity to select some very interesting non-profit organizations, limited companies as well as foundations, and to create business models in cooperations with them. Ravi Ko from Monitor Inclusive Markets, he is one of our most important partners on the consulting side. They have helped us a lot in the area of water and in the area of affordable housing. Yeah, like I said, we were also trying to build evidence on what would work and what not. And at the moment, coming close to the end of our 3-year project period, we want to finalize this project and to become a hub for social businesses in India and for impact investors. I think there's a lot of hype about impact investing in India, same as in other continents as well. But a lot of very important instruments and tools are still missing. I think there's not much governance, there's not much transparency, intermediaries are missing, and they're not few, but really a lot of people, experts on the ground, who say probably the day of reckoning will come very soon if these kind of institutions and institutional measures are not implemented soon. And as you probably know, there has been a crisis in the microfinance sector 2 years ago, starting from Andhra Pradesh. I would assume that given that this sector, the microfinance sector, is already more than 20 years old, that if it happens in such a sector, we better get our act together with regards to impact investing very soon. Otherwise, I see similar problems coming up. And if you look at who is investing into which companies, it's definitely that a lot of well-meaning companies and investors are chasing very, very few investment targets. It's always the same, the usual suspects, you would say, which of course has to do with the fact that there's not much transparency. This is an oversight over the project that we currently do. Like I said before, it's pilots. We're piloting certain models spread all over the country. In the north, in Punjab, we do organic farming. We combine it with microfinance. That's something which we do in most of the cases. That means we will, for example, do a health project, a health pilot, and we try to see whether health insurance, micro-health insurance will work. Or over here in the center in Bundelkhand, in Madhya Pradesh, we do low-income housing with an organization called Development Alternatives. And we want to see whether housing insurance and micro-housing finance would work. These are, like I said, all pilots, and after 3 years now, we have the opportunity to sort of say which could become a follow-up project, where could we follow up on what we have already done. This Harvey.
Ivan. So late.
Should I finish? Yeah. So I just did a very 3-4 seconds on your blueprint to scale study, and then I changed the subject and told the audience what we are currently doing with the help of Monitor and other consulting companies.
Yep.
And yeah, so these are basically, that's on a map of India what we are doing, where we are working. We have not only a portfolio of different projects, but also of different legal entities, and it's really interesting to see where the relationship and the cooperation works better with a startup limited company or with an NGO. Probably it's something which we could discuss later if some of you are interested in this topic. But it's obvious that, and this is another important learning, that with different kind of legal entities there will also be different kind of experiences.
We're Skyping to Mexico, they don't have very good signal, so. Yes.
So at the end, when everything is, when we want to be finished with our project, it's mainly that FEM Sustainable Social Solutions, will be doing capacity building and advisory services. We want to help our partners at OPES to find the right social enterprises, the right investment targets. We will presumably become the local office for this investment fund. That means part of our existing portfolio plus other social enterprises that we are currently screening in India will become part of this portfolio where OPES with its early stage investment strategy will go into. And of course, yeah, basically that's it. You can just go ahead. So what have we learned? Some of it I already mentioned to you. I think it's definitely sure that market-based solutions have a high potential for blended value. However, you cannot just adapt from middle-class markets as we know in the West. We need a lot of experience from the ground. I think this is what helped our network, that there is a team in Bangalore, that we have a high experienced team of mainly Indian colleagues who know this sector very well, that we also have cooperations with companies such as Monitor Inclusive Markets or CIRM in Chennai, who know this sector very well, much better than we do. And this has helped us a lot in certainly we did our own mistakes, but to avoid other mistakes. It's something which I already mentioned. It's essential to pick the right partners for piloting products and a service. And we managed during the process, and I think I have to give a lot of credit to our funders. Our project has been mainly funded through large Italian foundations, mainly Fondazione Cariplo, that they were very, very flexible. Coming from continental Europe myself, I would assume that not very many large foundations have proven to be so open to our advice and so flexible when it came to changing project partners, to changing the project strategy. Another experience, maybe Harvey can also go into more detail when it comes to that. Corporates are much less active in this space than startup social enterprises. Of course, there are reasons for that. And we managed to come to create cooperation with, in the area of telemedicine, where we found a telemedicine technology provider supporters in the pilot period. But at the end of the day, probably corporates are a lot more risk averse, of course, than startups. That's another big experience. There is tremendous excitement about impact investing. However, it's definitely a lack of investment targets. And what I already mentioned before, given the fact that not very many investment targets on the market, there's also a lack of intermediaries, of institutions that govern this market. And the enabling infrastructure, of course,